Hey, you wild women. Welcome back to another solo episode of Into the Wild. My calendar's going off because I'm right on time in recording this. So exciting. I'm in this makeshift studio as we are traveling the world, currently in Dubai. And let me tell you, my hair is starting to show the travel. It's like knotted and ratty and it's not the prettiest, but hey, I'll take that over not being able to travel the world. So here we are, Dubai, such a fascinating city. And I mean, I'm going to record a whole episode about the lessons I learned in Dubai, about Dubai, and about just like the fact that somebody saw the vision of this place in the desert and created what they've created here. It is insane. But today we're going to talk about identity because a lot of times we get stuck in old thinking and old patterns and old ways because we're so used to doing something, whether it was you being a teacher or, having a certain business and selling it or closing the doors because it was no longer something that served you, or maybe you failed. And now you're embarrassed to move on to something else because we're so worried about what people are going to think. For years, I always was considered that PR agency girl that knew how to do PR. And today I still get hit up, people asking me to do PR for them. And it's no longer something that I offer. And let me tell you, I could easily do like a PR strategy session and charge 10K for it, or actually do people's PR and build $1 million business again. But I no longer identify as the woman who is an agency owner, as a publicist, because I no longer love doing that work. I did for a while and I did it for 13 years and I still know how to do it. So it's great for me and the businesses that I'm working with. But I just no longer do it. And so like I remember handing out business cards. I remember pitching the media and my team pitching the media for me to be in the magazine or newspaper or on someone else's podcast, and knew the value of PR and I knew how to do it and I did it really well. But I remember sitting in a client meeting one day across the table, pitching media strategies and feeling like I was playing a role in someone else's movie. I felt like the director was going to come in and say, cut, that's it, we're done, on to the next. The words came out of my my mouth right, as in like I could pitch the deck, I could pitch getting and landing clients, but it was just, I didn't feel it anymore. And I sensed that the prospects and the clients could see that too. I was feeling hollow inside. And that's when I knew I had outgrown the very identity I've worked so hard to build. And I knew I needed out of the industry. I tried hiring people and filling the roles and making sure I wasn't in the weeds of the doing every day of like pitching and following up and emails and all that stuff. I trained my incredible assistant to do that work and I brought in other team members. It still was not filling my left tank. So today I want to talk about what to do when you have this like identity shift and the hesitations that happen to us because of that identity shift. And this is the identity crisis that comes with success, not necessarily failure. And what happens when you outgrow the very thing that actually made you successful? When the identity that got you here won't get you there. It's like when you recognize that moment is when you know you need to go through the steps of the things I'm going to teach you today, because sometimes the hardest breakup isn't with a person or a client, it's actually with an older version of yourself that no longer serves who you're becoming. That is the hardest part of leveling up. And it's not so much about letting go of an older version of you, but believing that there is a new version of you that you have to uncover. And it's also accepting that you belong there. So here's the universal truth about identity that not too many people are talking about. I remember the day that was the first time we had an $84,000 month. And I did the quick math and I just knew if I keep this up, and this is month over month, and we're doing $84,000 months, this is $1 million a year business, because that's all it is. $1 million a year business is 83.33333, whatever, $1,000 a month. So whatever I did to get here, if I can just carbon copy that and reproduce that every month and grow, then I have $1 million business. And we hit it. We finally hit it 1 month. And I sat there thinking, did we cheat? Did we lie? Did we steal? I don't deserve this. But anything. In all of this time trying to recognize the fact that I am creating and growing $1 million a year agency, women owned, women powered, essentially, I learned that while my bank account can easily change in 30, 60, and 90 days, it actually takes so much longer for this new identity to catch up. And in that moment, it was like realizing that I was doing it. I was doing the thing that they talk about. Also reflecting back on how hard it was to get there, but I digress. I was becoming a new version of me. And that meant every single day there was like micro doses of grief because I was letting go a little more and more of the old Renee that didn't think she can do it. And she did it. So here's the uncomfortable space between who you were and who you're becoming. I want to talk about this. First thing is the identity lag effect. Like I talk about, the example that I just talked about in terms of, doing the thing and winning and succeeding, but also just not believing that you're actually doing it, not believing that you deserve it. When you finally start living this dream, maybe it's a nice house, maybe it's a happy and healthy family, yet you might still think it's not yours. You might still think that all of this could easily just be taken away from you, which it can. But you're actually focusing more and more on how you can lose it as opposed to believing that you earned it and you deserve it. This is when it's still hard to believe that you can go on these luxury vacations, that you can go on that camping trip or buy the SUV or sign Johnny up for soccer or hockey. Gosh, hockey costs a lot because you think you can't afford it, even though all the cash in the bank proves that you can. You have more than enough money. This is that identity lag effect. You don't identify as the person who can't afford it, regardless of how you were able to afford it. But I'm really hoping that it was legal and in your business. The point being is that there's this lag between having that financial security and actually believing that it's yours. A lot of people go through that. You see these people that, feel like they don't deserve the nice stuff or the nice vacations, and that they'll always try to find cheaper ways to get stuff, coupon clippers, whatever it is, when they're actually wasting more time as opposed to enjoying the fruits of their labor. There are often 3 faces that we wear during this identity lag effect and the old you becoming the new you. And these are the 3 versions of you that are fighting for control right now. The first one being the past you. Right. So the past you is like stuck in this version of you where you're still clipping coupons. You're still shopping at Walmart. I'm not judging or disrespecting. I'm just saying you're still going for the discount pile when you don't need to. You're still apologizing for your rates. You're still like dimming your light. You're still not hiring the person will help you explode your business because you're worried about all the success and what that means. You're still prefacing every accomplishment by saying, I got lucky, or it was all my team. I had nothing to do. It's all my team. You're always punting the glory. Now, the present you, the one that maybe you're in right now, is an exhausted mediator trying to bridge 2 worlds. The one who deletes Instagram stories at the luxury hotel because you feel like you're showing off. It's the one who says we all the time instead of I or me when talking about achievements. Now, the point being is a great leader includes the team that helped them get there. But if you're constantly saying we, and never I, like, the person who loses that extra 10 or 20 pounds, they did the work to lose it. And she still says, we did the work. No, honey, you did the work and you deserve all the glory. The reason why we keep dimming our light is because we don't want to face that uncomfortable truth about you no longer being that person. So in this present moment, right, the present you is a person who's fighting for that attention, but also pulling herself back at the same time because she doesn't want that glory. She doesn't want the spotlight. She's afraid of of people feeling like that you're going to outgrow them. So now the other face and the last face is the future you. She's the one who's trying to emerge but keeps getting pulled back. Like you just like a little bit of like a couple steps forward and like a couple steps back. Right. So you're feeling the glory, but then, oh God, it's too much. And then you pull back. This is the one who knows you belong in those rooms, but you can't quite own it yet. She is scared yet excited, and the contradiction is exhausting, which is the reason why we created the Pink Skirt Project Summit, July 9th and 10th in Kelowna, BC, 2026. Go to thepinkskirtproject.com. Get your tickets to come to this amazing event. It's the second time we're doing this. We're getting over 450 women in that room. Can you believe it? And on that sidebar, the old Renee never in her life would have fathomed having an event that has 450 people in a room. To believe that 450 people not only are going to buy a ticket, but are actually going to show up and be there for 2 days. So the future Renee needs to believe that it's already happened and picture myself, visualize myself in that room, introducing the speakers, the sponsors, the vendors, our partners, the incredible people in that room. Because I deserve it. And you deserve to be there so that you can go through these 3 phases of identity and leave the old ones at the door. Now, there's also parts of this identity crisis that I call the loyalty conflict. The loyalty conflict that often keeps you small is when people say, oh, I hate this so much, when they say, must be nice. The must be nice syndrome. The other week, I had a call with a doctor who's helping us through some like parenting child situation stuff. And one of the things that this is like a provincially assigned psychiatrist that we're working with. And he's done 5 calls with us. And when I showed up to this call the other week, he was like, oh yeah, so who are we talking about? And it was about one of my sons. And he's like, have I ever met him? And I'm sitting there thinking, have you met him? This is our 5th call together, and he's been on the previous 4 calls. You know his story. I filled out a very long, detailed intake form with all of these issues. What do you mean? Have you met him before? So this was me thinking it, not actually saying it. And then it got to the point where I was like, wait a second, this guy's so overwhelmed that he was gaslighting me. He was being very disingenuous and very had a victim mentality, because I said to him, hey, listen, I'd love to share the images and the results of the brain scans that we did at the Amen Clinic. And he's like, what's that? What's the Amen Clinic? Who's Amen? And in my mind, I'm like, if you're in the world of psychiatry, psychology, you know who Dr. Amen is. He's done over 300,000 brain scans to understand some patterns in identifying people that are neurodivergent. There's so many studies. He's on all the podcasts, he's quoted. So it's kind of like being in soccer and not knowing who Ronaldo or Messi is. It's the exact same thing. So immediately I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Anyway, he went on to say, I don't have time to read these reports. I don't understand why you're going to get all these tests done when we're working together. And I said, I wanted a second opinion. We're looking at getting all of these tests done for things that you and your clinic can't provide. And now we're looking at like the total health of my child, not just your, 1 hour opinion every now and then. And he said to me, oh, wow, those must cost a lot. Must be nice. And I was like, I never looked at it as a cost. I just looked at it as everything I can do to help my children. And then we talked about how we're traveling the world and how I'm currently in Dubai. And he goes, oh, wow, Dubai, that must be nice. And then he goes on to like really passive aggressively continue saying these things. And to the point where I stopped him and I said, hey, listen, I feel like maybe you feel like you're being attacked. And that's not my intention. I'm not here to offend you or make you jealous. I'm simply stating this is our life. We're in Dubai. We got brain scans. And yes, this costs a lot of money. And I apologize if you're offended, but honestly, it has nothing to do with that. And so I caught myself at one point in the conversation after all these must be nice things were thrown at me, really downgrading how great our life was because I was so afraid to offend the psychiatrist. And then when I hung up, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to put this on my recording next week because this is so important to talk about. So how I handled it and how I'm going to continue handling it going forward is also understanding that when somebody's offended, when they say, oh, must be nice, oh, lucky you, it's almost like I feel almost embarrassed for them because when people say that, it's simply holding up a mirror to them saying, what are you jealous about? What are you envious about? So when these must be nice come out, whether it's an employee, a family member, a friend, all they're really saying is, I'm stuck where you used to be, and your growth reminds me of my stagnation. We can have a little sympathy for these people, right? So the must be nice is never about you. You have to understand that I figured out it's like this cocktail of 20% observation. They're seeing your reality, 30% comparison. They measure your reality against theirs. 40% self-abandonment. They're seeing where they've given up on their own dreams and their own possibilities. Let me see if I've done the math here. And then 10% hope. The hope is a tiny part that they still wonder if they could have it too. People who are offended or people who say must be nice are jealous, right? And it's really not your problem to solve. You just happen to be the mirror in those conversations. Now, I'm going to touch on a touchy subject about passive aggressive remarks coming from family members. This one's really tough. It just shows you the layers of resentment in family. Like, imagine coming from a generation where everyone worked hard. They worked their 9 to 5. They got their 2 weeks vacation. They got their pension. They stayed the course and they didn't waver. And they just kind of followed what's, quote, the American dream. Punch in, punch out, pay your taxes, don't break the law, mow your lawn, weed your garden, raise great kids. And you listening very likely are either on the cusp of getting out of that pattern and that cycle, or you've already left it a long time ago. And now you got to face family members or people close to you that have these passive aggressive remarks about your success. And I have come up with a couple things that I think might be the reason for this. And this is just my opinion, my perspective, my experiences. But the layers of resentment here, there's I wrote down 4 of them. One is the mirror. And I talk about this all the time. When someone says must be nice, you're really forcing them to look at themselves. You're forcing them to look at their own choices. Every win, every share, everything that is good on you is a reflection for them looking back to themselves of what they didn't do, of what they didn't achieve, and what they still might believe is possible, but they think maybe it's too late. And then the other layer, and this could be anybody, but the other layer is like this bloodline betrayal, where there's this unspoken family contract that says we all stay at the same level. Do you feel that? It's kind of like your dad's like, hey, your dad was a lawyer. I want you to be a lawyer. And we're going to stay at the same level, but you can never be more successful than me. So when you rise, you're not just succeeding, you're actually breaking this unspoken family agreement. And that because maybe your parents raised you and raised you well, that they might feel this sense that you owe them something. Do you ever get that? That like you feel like maybe the people that raised you or the people closest to you, you get this icky feeling like you feel like you owe them something because you've become successful despite all the reps you put in, despite all the work you've done to achieve it. And here's what's happened. Anybody who's in that position, this like betrayal position, is really the person who's saying, oh gosh, I didn't do that. I didn't work as hard or as smart as you. I didn't do the thing I know I needed to do to be successful. And so now I'm embarrassed. And how dare you beat me? You owe me something. And they will claw at anything to highlight the 1 or 2 or 10 things they did to help you succeed. That's ultimate betrayal. So the third thing is this thing called this identity threat, where family has spent decades building an identity around being humble and hardworking and salt of the earth, or middle class and like a hardcore taxpayer. And your new lifestyle threatens the very foundation of who they believe they are. And now they're like, hey, they'll come up to you and say, don't embarrass the family name, or something like that, because you're just going a different path. You're pursuing your passion. And yet that's not good enough. That's not good enough because it's too much, and you don't want to be too much. They don't want you to be too much. But then it stops you from going to do the thing that you actually love to do. And the last thing that I know this is this fear of abandonment, right? You get too quick, too busy, too big, making too much money. They feel that you will never talk to them again. They'll have these like passive aggression statements like, if you don't struggle like us anymore, then you won't need us anymore, and then you won't like us anymore. It's like they're pulling you down into their pattern of struggling, because if you all need each other, then you kind of stay stuck in this like stew. It just keeps churning. And we're all going to suffer together because I can't handle you being more successful than me. And it's the people we love the most that often end up doing this to us. And that's why I love my family deeply, 100%. I'm not saying these are examples from my family. Some of them are. I've just seen this. And it is a big reason why we curate the room for the Pink Skirt Project Summit. It's a big reason why we curate who's in this society. Because I will kick you out instantly if for a moment you start becoming this person that feels betrayal from others, or that feels the need to pull people down because they've succeeded more than you. So all that to say is there's these layers of resentment that often come from the people closest to us. It could even be your husband or your partner, that keep us playing small. When you want to be with the people, surround yourself by the people who are blowing air into your wings, saying, soar, baby, soar. So here are the stages that everyone goes through when they're really graduating to this like new level of identity. There's this denial phase when you ask yourself, who? Me? That's me? You know, there's still fear, like the fear that things will be taken away. You act like your old self just so that your peer group accepts you, right? You like stay in that person that goes out every Friday after work and drinks and smokes, because even though that's not what you want to do, because you feel like that pressure to stay in that peer group is so important to you. And this is where you're still driven, but you drive a beat up car and you stay in discounted hotels. You tell people maybe your old title at networking events because it's just easier. You don't want to deal with the conversations and the questions, and you're just like, I'm just going to, this is who I am. You're still buying sale items, or you're saying it's not that big of a deal. It's really not, when it absolutely is. The second stage is this resistance phase where you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's the messy middle where maybe you have fancy things, but you hide them. You don't really use them. You're successful on paper, but you still operate in scarcity mindset. Like you won't upgrade your email client to something that has more features that you need that can grow your business because you're afraid of that growth, because then you have to show it and share it, and that just scares you. The next stage is the integration phase, where you actually say, this is who I am now. This is me. I'm successful. Like I used to hate being in a supercar. I used to hate driving in a McLaren. I was so embarrassed by it because I used to judge rich people. And now I realized, wait, maybe I'm one of those people. So now the way I thought about these people, other people are going to think about me. And I didn't want that judgment. But guess what, sister? It was going to come anyway, regardless if I drove a crappy old 1998 Dodge Caravan. I don't know. It's still going to come. So this is that phase where your internal thermostat actually catches up to your external reality, where you stop prefacing your prices with, I know this might seem like a lot, but no, instead you're just saying, this is how much it costs. Pay up or don't come. You walk into any room knowing that you belong there, regardless of who's there. You can celebrate publicly without a disclaimer, right? Oh, let's celebrate more, sisters. So in this world of like changing your identity to be the person that you want to become and not putting up with any BS anymore, despite the fact that it might take you months, if not years, to graduate to this new version of yourself, there's actually a gift in all of this. So this uncomfortable transition ultimately served me because it inspired others to also pursue happiness and wealth and defining success on their own terms. I leaned into accepting help. I leaned into paying for it because I was accepting of this new lifestyle. I was realizing that, hey, wait a second. When I grow my business and I make more money and I employ more people, I'm helping people pay their bills and get food on the table and live a lifestyle too. I realized that the snowball effect of my growth actually directly impacts other people in a positive manner. And the part in all of this, the gift is when you become unrecognizable to your old self. Like, do you ever look at yourself in the mirror after you've achieved something incredible? You look different. It's because you're a new person. And you know you're in this new identity when you don't let fear win, when you don't just settle, when growth is comfort, when becoming who you are always meant to be actually feels good. Like you're checking the buckets and you're like, yeah. And you're inspiring others just by existing at this new level. And the discomfort in all this is the evidence of your expansion. So listen, if you feel like you don't recognize yourself anymore in all of this, good. If you're listening to this podcast and you're like, Renee, thank you for sharing this because old me's gone. That girl's gone. I left her at the door. Good. I applaud you. That means you didn't let your past write your future. And that identity crisis, it's not really a crisis anymore, right? It's all about putting on that crown. You're now being like crowned or sorted, whatever it is. You're not losing yourself. You're finally meeting that version of her. Like just picture the version of you that is at that next level and you knock on that door of opportunity and that other version of you opens it and says, welcome, I've been waiting for you. Like, do you not get goosebumps just thinking about that moment? And you're not obligated to be the same person you were a year ago, a month ago, or even yesterday. Growth requires shedding of old skins, just like snakes, although you're not a snake. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself become unrecognizable to everyone, including yourself. So listen, if this episode lit you up in any way, whether it's the dream of hosting your first big event, or if it's the asking for more money, or just like saying bye to past version of you and just being like, this is the permission slip. This is the permission slip to do the big, uncomfortable, scary thing. And you want more of it, please come join us at the Pink Skirt Project Summit in Kelowna, BC, July 9th and 10th, 2026. Tickets are on sale now. Go to thepinkskirtproject.com to get your tickets. And don't forget, even though this is far out, June 12th, every year is officially the International Pink Skirt Day. And in 2026 is going to be a turning up point on that day, June 12th. I want you to wear your pink skirt, fully armored, go out, inspire others, and do this scary thing. Until next time, ladies, peace out.